start? Okay. Okay. So the first one that we shall discuss is, ayan, almost na. We'll be starting with the unit 4, the language acquisition, diversity in language, hanggang unit 5. So we'll start first with first language acquisition. When we were younger, we learned language. When we say language acquisition, it is what we learned. I think natapos natin tong part na to. Language acquisition is what we've learned when we were young. Yung hindi natin masyadong, hindi siya yung masyadong required tayo maaral. Nakukuha natin, one, because of our parents. Yun yung language ng parents natin. That is usually our mother tongue. We know that language is fundamental to humans. We already know that most of the reasons behind the different theories of language is that it is a need in communicating. We need to communicate with other people. We need to express our feelings. We need to teach someone, teach the next generation. All of the things that we're doing, we need communication. As growing up, we've adapted some of the things. Kaya nga mapansin natin, saan kaya na ako? I remember some of the students, one of my cousin, ay pamangkin, sabi niya, nadidinig ko siya magsalita ngayon, salbahe ka. Ganun siya, 4 years old. That word, hindi niya naman alam yun eh. Hindi naman niya personally nakita yun sa kung saan man. Pero, that's what he heard in the house. So that is language acquisition. You acquire the knowledge, the language without you knowing it, because of the environment, people around you are using those kind of language. Many linguists argue that the language that children learn in the early stage brought about by many factors. The first language, they call it, plays a remarkable role in a person's life. It molds his perspective and point of view of the world. The speed of language acquisition among predominantly shows that children learn their first language fast enough to outrun the rate of learning of other macro skills. It is said that children learn better, learn other language better than adults. More on acquiring kasi sila. As you could see, some of the students, for example, yung mga naglilipat-lipat, yung mga lumilipat ng mga iba't ibang lugar. Doon sa mga ibang lumilipat ng lugar, for example, galing ka sa Tagalog community, lumipat kayo, napunta kayo sa San Fernando. Some students, especially those students that, okay, some students are, for example, ikaw, nilipat ka ng, napunta ka ng Pampanga, so nadidinig mo sila magsalita. But there's a chance na hindi mo maintindihan mo, but it's hard for you to speak, not unless aralin mo ng tunay. However, as a kid, some kids are, when they encounter those kind of things, kunwari, napunta siya dun sa lugar, sa Pampanga, ang mangyayari is, chances are, matututo siya magsalita ng Kapampangan. Kasi ganun kabilis matuto yung mga bata compared sa adults. Okay, so let's now begin with our lesson. Essentials in language acquisition. Basta lagi niyong tatandaan, there's a difference between language learning and language acquisition. Pag language acquisition, yun yung na-acquire mo nung bata ka. Yun yung first language mo. But language learning is what you are studying. Nag-aaral ka, for example, nag-aaral ka ngayon ng Mandarin kasi you need to study it because it's part of your curriculum. Yun yung language learning. Okay? Baka kasi ma-encounter nyo yung language learning sa ibang lugar. In the early phase of baby's life, it is said that he can learn his first tongue regardless if there's an intention of teaching adults from around him. According to the article written by Stan Worrow, Noam Chomsky, who is one of the pillars in language acquisition, stated that children across the globe, regardless of nationality and ability, learn language. So kahit sino pa siya, as long as, pero sa language acquisition, it is viewed dapat normal yung bata. I think I already told you this, pero yung bata dapat normal. Normal in a way that he or she has the ability to speak. Wala siyang speech problems sa kanyang internal. So as long as the children is normal, he or she will learn the language. Babies will undoubtedly learn a language as the faculty in acquiring a language embedded in the brain. Kasi meron tayong parts of brain na we will learn language eventually. So nasa brain daw natin yun. Okay. How do children then learn language? Yan mga question natin. Are there any circumstances that they need to have in order to acquire language? So there are different theories for that. In 1970, a child who was named Genius admitted to the Los Angeles was unable to speak in her 13 years of life and spent with isolation. Jeannie was unable to speak even though she had contact with her mother, who was not allowed to stay with her for a long period of time. So meron, ito yata yung na-discuss natin last time na I think there's an abuse. So it's hard for her to, it's hard for the kid to, to speak directly kasi walang nagsasalita, bawal. Ngayon, however, little by little, since 13 years old pa lang naman siya, she started to show imitation of syntax of words and communicate how she felt. Kasi, medyo bata-bata pa siya, kaya habol na habol pa. However, although she was trying her best to learn, the language she heard around her language remained simple. Kasi, based on the doctor's diagnosis, tapos na siya sa critical period. It is said that the critical period is 7 years old. Kaya, napaka-importante that your kid, especially if you will enroll the students, mas mabuti pa pala yung madaldal ang bata. Kasi if ever na madaldal yung bata at laging kayong kinakausap, mas madami yung nalalaman niya. That is why as much as possible, you should not feed wrong information to students like that. Okay? Huwag kayong nag-feed ng mga wrong information kasi matatandaan niyo yun. Critical period hypothesis claims that a child learns a language in relation to age. This hypothesis poses that there is an ideal stage one can acquire language. When the critical period passes, a person may be able to still learn language but more effort and difficulty. That is the reason why it's easy for you to learn Filipino, Tagalog, or kung ano man yung mother tongue mo, than English. If, for example, that the first time that you will be hearing English words is during upon entering the class. For example, grade 1, mahirap na. So you need to be exposed and exposed and exposed. That is why kailangan yung bata, both, di ba, we Filipinos, we need to have better English capacity. Kasi nga, work natin most of us, we want to go to abroad and we cater different nationalities. Kaya dapat, both mong matuturo sa bata, sa bahay pa lang, bago pa lang siya pumasok, the English language and also the mother tongue. And if your mother tongue is not Filipino or /Tagalog, you should, Tagalog, tuturuan mo pa siya ng Tagalog. So, dapat marami siyang alam. It will benefit for the students. Kasi, kahit saan siya mapunta, kaya niya magsalita. Napakaswerte nung ang mother tongue nila ay hindi Tagalog. Kasi, Kapampangan, Bisaya, Ilocano, yung mga different words kasi na yun, it's additional to their brain. They have a lot of things. Okay, so my dear students, you're very lucky because you are learning a new language. I know it's hard for you kasi kailangan nyo makapasa. You will be graded. But if you will learn Mandarin, it will give you a good thing. You will have additional language learned. And knowing other language is good. After Mandarin, pag na-master mo na, pwede ka mag-iba-iba ng mga language. Korean, pwede rin. Okay? So language acquisition development, or LAD, is from Noam Chomsky. His idea about LAD claims that children undoubtedly acquire language since the brain is equipped with an innate capacity to learn speech. Children therefore inherit language, structure, patterns, and vocabulary. Actually, Noam Chomsky is very well known when it comes to this. Lagi natatandaan, when we say LAD, or language acquisition device, the device that was being said is the brain. Meron tayong device na ginawa ang gumawa sa atin. Meron tayong device sa brain natin na we could speak. Problem, there are some, this one, ayan, kagaya ng aso, hindi sila marunong magsalita. Pero, they could communicate. They could say, kaya lang, through observations. So, we know that a dog, like this one, who always like to join the meet, bakit lagi siya, paano ko nalaman na gusto yung mag-join sa meet? It's different. Kasi we have the device, we have the ability to communicate. We could speak what we want in different language that we know. Yun yung nasa utak natin. Si Noam Chomsky yung make study ni Noam Chomsky. So the language acquisition device is postulated organ in the brain that is supposed to function as a cognitive development for learning symbolic language. For example, language acquisition. So, ayan. Meron tayong part sa brain natin na this is the device that we're using. That's why we could recognize, we could say the words that we want. Okay. So I don't know if you're familiar with Grey's Anatomy. So I'm not a fan of that before, pero ngayon pinapanood ko siya. There was this time that they're operating the brain and they keep on letting the open yung surgery pala sa brain kasi nga sobrang complicated doon. May mga ibang surgery doon na kailangan nagsasalita kasi they need to know if you're functioning well. Kaya totoo pala na may mga iba na there was a violinist yata na or something na nagaan siya na during the operation, he is required to perform. Kasi kailangan everything, dahil na sobrang complicated ng brain, everything na lahat nagpa-function. So nagpa-play siya during operation, during brain surgery. Okay. So yung isa naman, sa Grey's Anatomy, he was asked to spell the words. Okay, so may mga iba't ibang UG is present in all languages. Notwithstanding the difference of language learned, UG proposes that all language have common structure and components. And its inheritance makes children learn language in a very short period of time. However, Chomsky cannot identify how UG is processed by the brain. He just claims that UG is cognitive process or black box, which contains a general principles. Kaya theories pa din yan kasi yung universal grammar or UG is hindi niya ma-define kung anong part sa brain because the brain is still very complex and it needs a lot more of study. Uniformity in language acquisition. Generally, all children undergo the same stages and approximately develop at the same time. Diba, the reason why some parents are alarmed if the student has a special needs, kasi, for example, 4 years old, hindi pa nagsasalita. Hindi pwede to. May mga ganun lang siya. So, ibig sabihin, there's a problem. Because, sa isang age ng bata, dapat marunong na siyang, kahit pa paano, nakakapagsalita na siya. May age din na dapat marunong na siyang maglakad. So, you could see, it is kasi yun yung normally na ginagawa natin. isang estudyante, isang bata. At a certain age, babies are expected to babble, sit, stand, and even walk. The baby lags behind in performing expected activities related to their age. Adults around him start to become worried. So, sabi wala, hindi siya nagsasalita. Pati hindi pa siya nakakalakad. 7 years old. Yung mga ganun. Kaya kailangan, when you have a baby, you should be observant. You should be observant of, aside from if the baby is sick, you should also be observant when it comes to when it comes to their speech abilities. Cooing and babbling is considered to be the earliest stage in language acquisition. In the first few months of a baby's life, so around 4 to 8 months, a baby is expected to produce sound. Mga ganun na daw. Mga ganun na dapat yung bata. The most common sounds that can be produced are most likely vowels such as a, I, U. Among consonant sounds, is the easiest to produce since it's just putting to upper and lower lips together. So it's easier for them to say that. Even during an early stage, like 4 months, a baby tries to use active articular organs, causing him to produce vowel-like sounds. As he grows older, his tongue tries to touch the soft palate and eventually produce k and g. It is not surprising the words first uttered by most babies is ma, since and a are among the first few. So, and ay kaya mama. Yeah. So kaya yung other reason why mama is usually easier to say. Okay. Parents realize the development of the sound among babies, reinforcement becomes integral. Babies repeatedly hear words, mama, dada, papa. Yan. Kaya nahihirapan yung ate. Nahihirap yung ate. Kasi doon siya dila niya, hindi pa kayang-kaya. So, yun, hirap. La. Dapat yung mga mama, dada, papa. Yung mama and papa, madali. Papa. In no time, the baby starts to create a combination of those sounds that he normally utters. This stage commonly known as pre-language, and it allows baby to experience the role of speech in their life. That is why, sana, if ever na nagbe-baby kayo, nagtuto kayo sa baby, you still try to use the real words. Okay. Although it is cute to have different words to them, di ba? It is good to have different words around them, yung ginagamit nila, so that it will be easier for them. For example, nom, inom, inom, so you need water. Yung mga ganun. So it's better if ever na matuto sila agad. So you need to expose them with different language. Linguists record activities thoroughly in this stage to capture language acquisition. Still, they are also cautious not to make some misjudgments, hence giving the allowance on this stage by providing the earliest to the latest schedule expected activity of the child. So that is the reason why, even in TESOL, if ever you will enroll in TESOL, there are some activities intended for the little ones. So, dapat, that's why you need to have, you need to expose them with different activities appropriate to them. Kaya actually is better din, even the choice of song, so that it will be easier. Mas maganda yung mga sa bata, yung pambatang mga kanta ang pinapatugtog nyo sa kanila. Kasi that's, they're still learning the language and they need to learn good songs appropriate for the kids. Okay? One word stage finds its place to the next cooing and babbling. So nagkakaroon na siya ng sa 12 and 18 months niya, at this point, children can produce intelligible and recognizable units of speech. The one-word speech stage usually is distinguished with the words of customarily, syempre, eat, drink, mama, and other words associated. So, 12 to 18 months. Kaya dapat siya kinakausap niyo constantly yung bata. In this stage, baby's language is normally referred to holophrastic. Ano ba yung holophrastic? Which means that act of function of phrase to provide information on what the baby wants to feel. Maganda rin dito na little by little, tuturuan mo sila, aside from crying, how to express what they want. Okay? So how to express that they want, you should condition it to them para since they're trying to communicate, you need to tell them to express them. For example, hungry. So, milk, milk, milk. Ayan. So, parang nag-train ka lang. So pala, no? Milk, milk. Hindi pala ganun. Okay. So, ngayon naman, sa two-word stage, it happens to be the third stage in language acquisition. This normal starts with 18th month to 20th month of baby's life. Since babies have gradually increased in their lexicon, a two-word stage, they now start to combine words in attempt to express their ideas, feelings, and intention. So dumadami na the words that the students that the kids have are actually into doble na, dumadalawa na. The adults around them have to understand and interpret the speech. For example, mama eat. Okay. Hindi eat mama. Mama eat yan. Mama eat. Sabihin, kakain na siya. So little by little, we need to, yun nga lang, medyo maano sila magsalita kasi mabilis sila magsalita. Mama eat. Gano'n lang pala. No? So usually, yung mga nakakaintindi sa baby talk ay yung mga kasama. Ayun. So syempre, I remember there was a time, hindi ko maintindihan yung pinsan ko. Ha? Ano yun? Kasi wala. Honestly speaking, I'm an only child. So, I do not know how to speak with babies. I do see some of my cousins, pero I do play with them, but I do not I do play with my cousins when they were young, pero hindi ako nakikipag-baby talk. I don't talk baby. I don't I don't baby talk. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know how. So, usually, laro-laro lang, bantay-bantay. Pero yung talagang nagkaroon ng baby sa bahay, no, I do not know how to talk. Marunong lang ako ipaglaro, buhat, kung ano gusto niya, binibigay, kinakausap ko siya. Pero hindi ko pa natatry mag-baby talk. So, those, probably yung mga marunong makipag-usap sa bata, are those who grew up with their sisters or brothers or cousins in the extended family sila sa bahay. Dito kasi kami lang ng mother ko or father ko, tatlo lang kami talaga. So, I don't know how to do those things. But it's fun to have babies around, isn't it? We also have the prototype language. It is the next stage of language acquisition. By the way, if you would like to review this, I think it will be better if, for example, you will make a table, the different stages, and then what are the things that you could see during this stage para makita nyo kung ano yung progress nila. I think it will be better for that. Some linguists call this stage telegraphic speech. Bakit? At this point, children can now produce numerous combination of words and new words that are intentionally invented to further communication. Just like Telegram, di ba pag Telegram, I know you're familiar with the app of Telegram, pero kasi, during before, maybe the time of your parents, yung wala pang phone talaga, ang example ng Telegram, Mama, come here, cat, drink milk. Okay. So, bakit ganyan? Sa Telegram kasi, yung tinutukoy dito is bayad siya per words. Na it's very expensive. Wala kasi before, di ba? Walang phones. You cannot text it. So, people before would pay someone will pay a post office yata to, and pay a post office, and then, yung words na yan, bayad per word. For example, sad to say, for example, namatay yung one of family members mo, you will receive a telegram, patay tatay. Hindi ba parang gano'n? It's very sad to receive that kind of letter, yung telegram. Pero at least you know. Kasi nga, bayad yun bayad siya. So yun yung telegram. I know ngayon may telegram na, but this is how. Kaya marunong ang taong mag-text even before. Kasi nga, kailangan. Okay. And before, parang telegraphic stage because during this time, the kids, they have different ways of telling words. Kasi nag-start pa lang sila bumuo ng different sentences. Okay? That's why it's good na you should speak to them all the time, clearly, and the formal language. Huwag niyo silang gayahin. Kasi pag ginaya niyo sila, hindi sila masyado matututo. Kaya dapat siya, anak, for example, Mama, come here. Okay, anak, I will come there so that the cat will drink milk. Mga gumaganon mo rin sila. Pero syempre, yes, Mama, yes, come drink. Parang little by little so that they could recognize that. That's why it's good to show them also different cartoons in English or Filipino cartoons, some music that has counting. Ayan, marunong sila magbilang, gano'n. Okay, so we're already done with the first part. Done na tayo. Done. Haba. Okay, so let's have the second language learning. So a while ago, we have discussed language learning, like first language acquisition. And you've known the different stages in learning a language. You've learned that little by little, there's a process in order for the children learn their language. So now we'll have the second language learning. It is said, actually there's a theory na dinig ko lang dun sa isa kong prof. I don't know if this is Stephen Krashen, prof talaga. Hindi, nag-umattend kasi ako ng seminar niya. Parang hindi ko sure kung siya yun eh. Basta may nagsabi na lahat daw ng language na hindi natin mother tongue, considerably is our English. Foreign language pa din daw yun. Kasi hindi siya yung ating mother, hindi siya yung atin. It's still foreign. But we consider English as our second language kasi since we were young, and some people, that's actually the first language nila. I mean, some Filipinos, even if they're Filipino, that is their first language because their parents, karamihan kasi ng mga, ang first language nila ay English, are parents who actually have yung mga American father or their parents are actually in the corporate world. Bakit sila nandun? Kasi they saw that there's a need for the students. Nandun kasi yung pera. Di ba? Totoo naman eh. Nandun yung pera. And they were like their kids, it's easy for, maybe nahirapan sila when they were young na mag-English, ayaw nila mahirapan yung anak nila. Kaya nga lang, not knowing Filipino is not that good. Filipino language, our mother tongue, and all of the language used in the Philippines is very important. It's very important that you still have your own. I know that English is important too because you need that to communicate. Kaya nga tayo English majors, di ba? Kasi there's a need, aside from we love the literature parts, we also love to have a good job. Di ba? Yun naman talaga yun. Actually, in my experience, my first love is Filipino. Hindi naman ako magaling sa English. And as you can see, I'm not that good in English still. But I have actually changed a lot. And I love Filipino language. I love Filipino subject. Yan yung talagang, no limitaje en el filibusterismo, kabisado ko yan. Ibong Adarna and Florante Laura, sakto lang, may mga parts ako naalala because my teachers are my favorite teachers sa ever since puro Filipino. Meron lang ilan na English, pero, and also one of the reason why I became an English teacher is one of my teachers in English in Lab High. Kasi, nagsasalita siya ng English, pero alam mo, parang nagtatagalog lang din siya because hindi siya yung, there's some, matalino yun eh. Cum laude yun, ng batch na or magna or summa. So, but when you speak to my teacher, it's like you're just speaking in Tagalog. You forgot that you're speaking in English. Parang, kasi ganyan siya magsalita. Oh, isn't it that you could do this? Parang yung English yung sinasabi niya. English is the word. But Filipino style siya hindi yung Filipino style na matigas. But rather, the conversation is very free. she's not impressing everyone. So that's where I realized, you don't, ay, bad girl. Sorry. Yung aso ko kailangan yung cord ng laptop. Okay. So that is when I realized that you don't need to impress other people. English language is not impressing other people, but rather just communicating, just part of our communication. So that's the reason why I do not have intonation. At kung napapansin nyo, no, hindi ako I do not speak in language. Wala akong hindi ko akalin yung shoulders ko. Kasi may mga iba ganun talaga sila mag-English. I do admire those, but I'm not like that. So let's begin with our second language learning. Marami kong kwento kasi I want you to know the reason why I'm telling you this, hindi dahil sa gusto ko kwento yung buhay ko, but rather so that you could see that there are different, based on experience and based on experience as a student, as a teacher, lagi ko siyang tinatandaan yung mga ganung bagay kasi nagagamit ko in order to handle different students as well. So, babies learn their first language at early stage. Yun yung napag-usapan natin a while ago. They can communicate pretty well with the people using the language they're using. So, some learn another language primarily when the environment's children are raised to have more language. So, based on experience, ayan na naman, I have a cousin na nakapangasawa siya na French. Hindi ko alam kung tawag doon sa half French, parang ganon. Pero French yung tatay nung napangasawa nung pinsan ko, and then yung nanay niya is parang Bisaya. Pero pero English yung ginagamit. So dun sa kanilang bahay, the children knows how to speak in English, in Bisaya, and French. So yung lolo niya, kinakausap siya ng French. Yung mommy niya, kinakausap siya, at saka yung daddy niya, kinakausap siya ng English. And then in the community, since yung lola nun, sa side na yon, yung lola nun, yung mga kasamahan, Bisaya. So natututo siya mag-Bisaya ng little. Ngayon, the problem is, nasan si Tagalog? Kaya ang nangyayari, sabi nung lola niya naman, which is yung nasa side namin, sabi, kausapin niyo ng Tagalog. Sabi din ng tatay niya, kausapin niyo ng Tagalog. So ngayon, ang dami niyang language na alam. But he is very fluent. Bad girl. Okay. So, he is very fluent with the different language. Kasi dun siya na-expose. That is the reason why you don't need to remove Filipino language para ituro sa bata. You need to give them all, lahat ng pwede, because it will benefit to that student. Okay, I will give you an example. I have a Japanese student. As in, Japan siya lumaki. Hindi siya kinausap ng nanay niya ng Filipino. English lang. So, she only knows English and Japanese. Now, when he went back here, it's very hard for her to communicate well. Aside from that, there are also of my students na English sila mag-usap sa bahay and everything. Kaso, may mga subject tayo na Filipino at mother tongue sa elementary at araling panlipunan. Araling panlipunan, maraming bumabagsak dyan. Mahirap na kasi ang subject kasi Tagalog. Nahihirapan sila sa Tagalog. Tapos mga facts pa. So it's hard for them to do those things. So ngayon, if you want the student to study well, hindi mahirapan, kailangan all language. Mahalin nila. Walang mas nakakataas na language. Kahit na nagagamit natin for academic purposes is the English language, Filipino to communicate with our friends, our dialect, our language, yung iba-iba pa, kung meron man kayo iba pang alam, huwag niyong kakalimutan because you could use it. It's a tool. You need to use all of those things. Kaya dapat, mas mahalin natin syempre ang wika natin, sunod natin yung pero dapat nating tatandaan na lahat ng language is very important. And knowing a lot of language will do good to you. Parang si Dr. Oceres lang, dami niyang alam na lengguwahe, ay nagamit niya lang. In this part of the module, so you will learn L2. So that is the second language. L1 is our first language. So now, second language acquisition is sometimes regarded as second language learning. Bakit? Kasi we always have to take note, hindi siya, magkaiba siya eh. Magkaibang, di ba sinabi ko sa'yo kanina, second language acquisition is knowing it, knowing it little by little, hindi mo napapansin. Pero yung learning is talagang pinag-aaralan mo. Bakit sila napagsasama? Why is our second language, English, is considered also as second language acquisition and second language learning? Kasi yung English, pinag-aaralan natin pilit. Kasi we need that in order to have better opportunities. I'm not saying more, hindi pala better. Opportunities. Yeah. More opportunities for learning. So that's why nagkakapareho sila minsan. Pero magkaiba sila. So what is a second language? This is known to be a language used by a person to interact and build connection with people around him. This language is an addition to the mother tongue or first language that he has acquired after the first one. Regardless if a person learns a third, fourth, fifth, or even nth language that he has, it will still differ as second language. So my dear students, even if you have a lot of different language na natutunan, second language pa din yung tawag niyan. So huwag yung tatanungin, ma'am, adi, paano po yan? Ang mother tongue ko is Kapampangan. Tapos, ang second language ko is Filipino. So, yung English, third language. Hindi. Second language. Okay? So, ang mother tongue is your first language. And, ang second language nyo is the Filipino. Okay? Ay, is the English. Because the onset of globalization, learning a second language is inevitable. It makes humans interactive and allows broader space of connection. But how do we usually acquire learn a language? What are the stages that an individual may go under SLA? So, we have different methods. Ako, ito na naman to. In language teaching, ito yung mga different methods natin. So, I've been teaching these different methods for a while now. This is actually my third one. Kasi, my dear students, medyo haba tayo ng konting topics sa different methods na to because I will give you some tips then for the students. So, pero yung iba, kayo na lang magbasa. Okay, so let's start with the audiolingual method. Audiolingual method is known as Army method. Bakit siya Army method? Kasi, di ba sa Army, may sasabihin yung commandant, kunwari, sa marching, left, right, left, right. Tapos, sasabihin nila mga sa left, right, hanggang sa lahat. What will happen in an audiolingual method / Army method is that kung ano yung sinasabi ng teacher, which is the commandant, ulitin. Tapos magpapalit-palit lang. For example, okay, good morning class. I'm your teacher for the day. Kindly say, I am hungry. Repeat after me. Tapos sasabihin nyo, you will say, I am hungry. Okay, my dear students, that is what I felt today. How about you? You are, so magsusulat ka ng I am as blank. So the students are expected to, can you say it? I am beautiful. Okay, that's what you're feeling right now. How about you? I am lonely. I am sad. I am ganon. So audiolingual method, isa yung sa part ng audiolingual method is you will remove parts in a sentence, tapos papalitan lang. Yun. So that is audiolingual method. Aside from those words, basta lagi lang may mga pinapalit-palitan na words. Okay, so yun. So ulit-ulit, so until they memorize and they could apply the concept. That is audiolingual method. And audiolingual method is one of the first methods that was used in order to teach language. You could also use the audiolingual method when teaching grammar. For example, you are teaching different patterns and then papalit-palitan lang. So that's audiolingual. Memory strategy naman is a language learning method that depends on the memorizing ability of an individual. So as the word itself, you will memorize. Memorization seems beneficial to many, especially in establishing a word map, brain lexicon, word. Using this one, so you have easy access to retrieval. So you will just memorize everything, which is normally what will happen. Talaga naman, di ba? So, ibig sabihin nito, ganito, ganyan. So, next is metacognition strategy. It uses planning, arranging, focusing, and evaluating personal progress in learning language. People who make use of this process try to monitor their learning style and needs relative to L2. This approach is relying to self-paced learning. So since it depends on people, so metacognition strategy has a lot of, siguro we could say we have worksheets and sort of, and then little by little, the person will self-evaluate, check na kung yung he could do different, parang module, parang nagkakaroon siya ng module. Diba? Next one is effective method. It is used by people who have high social or affective reliance. These types of learners control their feelings of anxiety and embarrassment. Learners in this method get in motivation in learning language through constant interaction to social situation. So for example, with this effective method, para siyang sa community method. Since the teacher will give different scenarios. Ayan, paborito yan when you're learning new language. Different scenarios for the students. For example, I myself, I will ask the student, okay, my dear students, kindly choose your, this is your group. Now, what you will do today is that you will go to a bank and then withdraw a money. So, I would like you to role play that. Okay, so yun naman, nag-usap yung mga magkakagrupo. Okay, you will be the guard, and then I will enter, I will be the client, and then you will greet me. Ganyan. Can you do it? Yes. Okay. So now you will show me how to show me how to withdraw, how to fill up the forms for withdrawing. Okay, sure. And then I will go to the teller. Now, isang member naman si teller. I am the teller, so you will ask me this one. So now you will perform in front of the class. Now we will have another term, how you bring back borrow from a library card, airport scenarios. So those are the effective method. So nakaka-shy siya, but you could start doing that. And it is, of course, you're shy, but you need to overcome it so that you could apply the words. And some people, if for example you have the budget and you are allowed by the school, you could go out on a field trip and then you will do those things in person. Okay, so that's an example of that. Next, grammar translational method. When we say grammar translational method, we were using the mother tongue. For example, ako, ayan. Good morning, class. I will teach you how to. We will go to a carnival. Ay, may carnival. Mama, what is carnival? Carnival. Ano yun? That is feria. Okay. So I'm using a translation. Dine-direct translate ko siya. Ngayon, there's a positive thing when we have grammar translation. In grammar translation method, it could be a positive one. Kasi you could use the L1 so that you could translate it to L2. Ngayon, that's good, diba? Kasi you could use L1 so that the students would know. Now, the problem with grammar translation method, pag yung L1 niya would be the hindrance para hindi maintindihan ng bata yung L2. So, yun yung nagiging problem. Pero grammar translation method is that you will just you will use the mother tongue so that they could understand the new language more. Okay? Pero hindi dapat Tagalog. Next is, there are different stages in language acquisition. So, ito yung mga different stages. Ito yung sinasabi ko sa'yo. So, the stage 1 is pre-production. The student characterizes that as a minimal comprehension. So, 0 to 6 months. Does not verbalize, nods, yes or no, throws and points. So, those are the different kasi nga during this time it's hard for them to understand even if the simplest sentence. So oo lang sila, yes, no, yes. So 0 to 6 months. Early production, the student has limited comprehension, produces 1 or 2 word responses, uses keywords and familiar phrases. So this is for 6 months to 1 year. Medyo ano na siya niyan, medyo may idea na siya and exposed na siya ng bahagya sa words. Speech naman is the student has a good comprehension, can produce simple sentences, and frequently, meron siyang error. So, 1 to 3 years na siyang nag-aaral. And intermediate naman has an excellent comprehension and makes few grammatical errors for 3 to 5 sentences. May tao? Hindi ko alam ate. And advanced fluency is a near native level speech. Now, I believe that you are already in the advanced fluency stage. Dapat kaya na natin makipagsalita. The reason why nahihirapan tayo magsalita is not because we do not know. The reason why we have that because it's kaya tayo nahihirapan kasi hindi natin ginagamit. So, we're already done with that. Okay, tapos na tayo dito. Okay, tapos na tayo dyan. So, I think language acquisition tayo. Okay, so I think this would be the last language acquisition. Lesson 3, competence versus performance. So, you already learned how language learns. So, ano yung mga different stages? May idea na rin kayo. You already understand that language plays an integral part in the man's daily activities. So, napaka-importante niyan. And, okay. Meron? Parang may record. Hindi, chat text yun. Sorry. Okay. Competence can be associated with overall skill in a language accurately, appropriately, and flexibility. Sabi ni Noam Chomsky, competence is visualized as the ideal capacity that is situated mental and psychological property of language. This concept was also seconded by Ferdinand de Saussure as language. According to this linguist, a learner has learned and familiarized himself with all the rules in grammar, syntax, and punctuation. All these systems should be learned by a language learner before he can fully utilize the language. So, dapat dito, you need to know the different syntax of language. Competence ang tawag, associated, pag kunwari, alam mo na lahat. So, it will be easier for you to do so. Ano naman yung performance? Tapos ka na sa competence, alam mo na lahat ng gagawin. Okay? Now, we'll have the performance. Performance refers to the actual utilization of the language. So, ibig sabihin, paano ka talaga magsasalita. So, the actual utterances of learner is based on the systems he learned. Chomsky believed that the person's performance in a language highly depends on the accumulated knowledge he has about the language. Saussure has coined the concept parole, which means he agrees the idea that performance or parole is the observable output of language. Both Chomsky and Saussure pose that performance can be affected by a memory lapses, distraction, and shift. So, performance naman. So, the concept of competence and performance is paramount to language study. This idea, linguists found children acquire developed language, and similarly, also allows people to visualize how language functions in the human brain. So, nakikita natin kung paano mag-function yung language sa brain. So, it's hard for us to foretell that. Basta lagi nyo lang tatandaan. Check na. Okay. So, when you have communicative competence, it means that, balikan natin yung para maintindihan natin. Okay. Lagi yung tandaan, okay. So, lagi yung tandaan, when we say communicative competence, it means that you are familiar with all of the rules with this one. Competence ka, there's a competence if you're familiar with the rules, grammar, syntax, and punctuation. So, everything, you already know these three. However, the difference between performance naman is the actual utilization of language. What's the difference between the two? Yung isa, you know all of the things. As in, kabisado mo lahat. You know when to put S, know what are the different verb agreement, and everything. Pag sinabing, kaya lang, the problem is, different story yung performance. Performance naman is how you utilize the things that you learn. Utilization of language. Yes, you know it. Competence. You all know everything, the rules, pero how you will use it. That is the performance. Kasi actual utilization of language. Okay? So, sana naiintindihan natin. Okay. So let's start the picture. Okay, how do you do? My name is Tarzan and I believe you are known as Jane. So ano to iniisip niya? Allow me to introduce myself. I am Tarzan. You must be Jane. I am Tarzan. It's pleasure to meet you. There she is. Meet Tarzan, you Jane. So as you can see, this is the competence. Alam mo eh. Alam mo yung sasabihin mo. However, the performance is different. Okay? So, the competence, you all know the rules. Alam mo yung sasabihin ko, alam mo yung pero during the actual performance, yung paano ka magsasalita. So, yun. Communicative competence can be defined as general ability to use the language. Noam Chomsky and other linguists believe that language users can be considered proficient if they can use the language reflecting some kinds of competence. If a speaker can speak accurately, appropriately, and flexibly, he's considered to be a proficient speaker and can be likened to a native or language speaker. So, communicative competence kapag kaya niyang magsalita accurately, appropriately, and flexibly. Okay, so parang it's like communicative competence is you don't need to think the word. Hindi naman sa lagi na kasi even the native speakers do not know how to not all words in a way na parang sa Filipino din you don't know all of the words, but you could see that you are confident and the ideas will flow in English na yan, English. O kaya Mandarin, direction siya. Hindi na yung kailangan na nagmukha ka nagta-translate. Hindi na yung okay. Grammatical competence involves accuracy on the use of words and structure. Concentration on this level will allow a learner to know the different types of words, phrases, and grammatical structures that can be considered as an important layout in learning the language. SocialLinguistic competence refers to the ability to use appropriate language. So dito sa grammatical competence, yun yung alam mo yung words, structure. Pero yung sociolinguistic competence is when to use the language. For example, actually this is one of our lessons last Friday for my doctorate. Sociolinguistic competence. It is you should know what is the right words to use. For example, for a teacher, the thing is before you say some teachers they do not like hi hello kasi it's rude to them. So for example, you said hi ma'am. Some of the teachers will be offended. Sociolinguistics yun. Kasi what you're saying, hi, hello, what? Are we friends? Diba? You only say hi, hello to your friends. You say good morning or good afternoon, ma'am. Ganun sila. Naiinis sila pag sinasabihan sila ng hi, hello. Kasi it's not formal daw. So, this part of social linguistic competence is that you will know when to use. You know how to communicate. And also, yan ang important role dapat ng ating class mayors. That, kasi siya yung representative natin. You should know how to speak. You should know how to use social linguistic competence very well. Kasi for example, if you cannot use that, the whole class will have a problem. Diba? You should know what words will trigger your teacher and what words will not. Okay. But for example, can I have some water? Give me water. So you can see words are very important. Ate, parang may tao. Strategic competence naman inclines to the ability to organize a message effectively and compensate via strategies for any difficulties. This is mostly used when speakers are having issues in making themselves understood. This competence can be very useful in the situations like this. A student was not able to remember the word she is to say. Instead, what she did is to describe the thing. So, strategic competence is this. For example, nakalimutan ko yung words. Instead of, ma'am, I don't know. I'm sorry. Hindi ganun. Strategic competence is you will use other things to describe. For example, you forgot, ito na naman tayo sa lababo. Kasi lagi ko nakakalimutan yung lababo, which is sink. So, ang tawag, it is where you wash the dishes. Bacha. No, not that. You wash the dishes. It is located at the washroom. Sometimes you toothbrush there. Laboratory. Yes, laboratory, the same. So, strategic competence is how, you have, teka lang nung nakaraan sa di ba, nung nakaraan hindi, ang pinabagsak ni Mami buhangin sa may mga damo. Oh, yun dati. Hindi sa kalsada. Ayun, sensya na. Okay, so yun yung strategic competence is marunong, in short, marunong kalumusot. Alam mo yung tamang ways to do those things. Okay, so yung strategic competence. Balikan natin. Communicative competence, under siya ng lahat na yan. Is you could, under siya nito, ng grammatical, social linguistic. When we say communicative competence, is that you could utilize everything that you've learned. Language, kayang-kaya mo siya, kaya mong lumusot, you could use it appropriately, flexibly. So it means na kapag may communicative competence ka, meron kang grammatical, meron kang social linguistic, strategic, yung tatlo meron ka. Ano ba yung grammatical? Grammatical is you know how to speak, you know the proper words and everything. Now, since you know the proper words, you must learn that social linguistic competence is when to use the correct words. What social thing we are talking about right now? Yun yung social linguistic competence. And strategic competence is you forgot all of the words, but you need to describe the words, and you could only have that if you have a wide vocabulary. As we grow old, we need to know that ano ba to? Wala. Anong presko? Pwede bang balin? Presko to eh. Presko nga. Presko nilagay nila eh. Ha? Presko. Presko. Sabi ko, presko. Ay, nice. Presko. Sorry. So, yun. Social linguistic is hindi ka nakaka-offend. There are some words that will trigger a person. And if yung person, kahit pa paano, madaling i-troubleshoot kapag mas mataas ka sa kanya. Pero, what if that is your boss? So, hindi mapansin eh. Sa social linguistic competence, bakit may mga estudyante, nung high school kayo, bakit may mga estudyante na gustong-gusto ng tao? Kasi, they have social linguistic competence. Marunong sila maglaro, marunong sila makipag-usap. And that is a skill we must know how. Mag-plastic yan eh. No, it's not ka-plastikan. Social linguistic competence is not ka-plastikan. It is when to speak. What words are appropriate during that time. It's not ka-plastikan. That's the problem with people. When a person has a social linguistic competence, they believe na, ba't nakikipag-usap ka dyan ng ganyan? Eh, di ba, ganito tayo? No. It's what are the words that you need to use? Because, let us face it, that our life is actually more on transaction. We need to transact people. We need communication. Kailangan natin ng tao. Kasi nandito tayo sa field. Okay? Next is strategic competence is ability to organize message effectively to compensate any difficulties. For example, you forgot some words, and what you would do is you need to have another word. Ganito gagawin natin. In other words, ganito. Yeah. So, I think we're already done, hopefully. Okay, so we're already done with the different competence. My dear students, I've already used so much of your time, and I'll stop recording na.